Good evening, America. Welcome to Battleground Live. This is the show where we kick ass and take names and lock horns with the radical left. We never quit. We never surrender. From sea to shining sea and everybody in between, welcome, Patriots, on this glorious, glorious Friday. Thank God it's Friday. It's been a crazy week. It's been a knife fight all week. Somehow, I found myself all caught up in Pete Hegseth's confirmation, fighting alongside him to make sure that he's the guy. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And yes, I know that we've talked about Pete Hegseth's confirmation as Secretary of Defense a lot this week. But the reason we've done that is because it is the fight. If you are an America First supporter, if you believe in Donald Trump and his agenda, because we are going to win. We are going to be victorious. The title of this episode is "This is Our Line in the Sand," all in defense of Pete Hegseth. You know, he's my friend of mine, but beyond that, this is a symbolic fight for the future of America First reform. And we're talking just specifically here within the Department of Defense, but also with Kash Patel at FBI. With also Tulsi Gabbard, with also RFK. I mean, all of these people represent the agenda that President Trump ran on and won in a historic landslide. We've got to support each and every one of his cabinet nominees because they are reflective of what the future of our country. That's what we should get. So, folks, thanks for being on the show, or thanks for being here with me tonight. Yes, I know some of you in the live chat were saying it's right night. And yes, Friday usually is right night. At least it has been for the past couple of weeks. Brian couldn't make it tonight. He had an appointment that he had to be at, but next week he will be on the show. He apologizes. You know how much he loves all of you members of the battle crew. Also, I know we've got several members of McGroin Nation in the chat. Welcome. We've got members of Dan Nunn's Nunn Report. I think they're called Nunchuckers. Dan, if I have that wrong, let me know. But if you're that, we appreciate the Nunn Report rating this show as they do. Not every day, but almost every day. You guys are great. Members of the battle crew, McGroin Nation, if you're not following the Nunn Report, you should definitely go over there on Rumble and follow him over there. He's a great American patriot with a great show. We should support independent content creators because truthfully, folks, they are the future. So we've had a very, very hectic day here in Fort Parnell for a lot of different reasons. And I'm not talking just about the confirmation of Pete Hegseth, which, you know, I've been working on fighting for Pete all week, as I told you, but we've got our Christmas decorations going up. Commander Melanie and I went out today, went to the Christmas tree farm. We found our perfect tree somewhere between 7 feet and 8 feet. I think last year we got a 9-foot tree and it was too high for our ceilings. So we got our tree, tied it to the top of the SUV, brought it into the living room, stood it up, and now the process of lighting the tree begins. And now listen, if you've been an OG member of the battle crew, which I know many of you are, you know that the lighting of the tree here in Fort Parnell is a very, very serious project indeed. Commander Melanie will start lighting that tree, and I swear to God, it will take her 6 hours to do. And sometimes she doesn't even get it done in one sitting. There are so many damn lights on that tree that you could probably see my tree here at Fort Parnell from the International Space Station. You could definitely see it from space. But when it's all said and done and the tree is fully decorated, it is absolutely amazing. It's amazing to see Commander Melanie work her Christmas magic. That much is for sure. So yeah, lots of stuff going on here at Fort Parnell today. Also, Natalie, my daughter, has her winter formal tonight. So she just came in here to the studio, and she leaves for her dance at 5:45. So the show might end a little bit early tonight, so I could see her off and say goodbye tonight. But I think, wait, well, I got Melanie's text messaging me. I don't know what that means. Anyways, so I think, so Natalie's winter formals tonight. I'm going to try to make sure to see her off. I mean, she looks amazing. She came into the studio. She looks amazing for this thing. It's kind of crazy to see the kids grow up really, really fast. And I can't believe it. And then Emma, my other daughter, has her very first basketball game today. It's an away game. And, as if I know you all watched the show. And G.I. Jenny, I see you. You said pictures are required. Yes. We will get some pictures posted of Natalie and I, and then my daughter, Emma. I found out right here live on this show that she made the basketball team. Well, her first game is today. So lots of moving pieces here at Fort Parnell. Christmas decorations are going up this weekend. So, all right. Yes. Okay. So let's just get to a couple headlines here. I can just check this out. This is going to play to a theory that I've had for a long time. If you're listening, if you're watching, you can see it right there on the screen. But if you're listening, this is a post by Rob Pyers. He says the Democrat National Committee $2 million still in the bank. This is exactly this. Here are the receipts, So of course, where I'm talking. I think many of you know where I'm going here. I've had a theory for a long time that Kamala Harris was just going to be a sacrificial lamb. When the Democrats realized at that debate not going to be able to be the nominee, the idea that, according to Joe Scarborough, well, when he debated Donald Trump, everybody in the world knew that that was not the case. And the Democrats also knew that they somehow had to replace him. And that's why they orchestrated a coup behind the scenes to do it. The problem was they couldn't replace him with anybody formidable. Their only option was Kamala Harris, because if they replaced Kamala Harris, they risked alienating Black Americans who supported her. And that's just a fact. This isn't me saying that. These are Democrat delegates who said this at the time, that if you replace Kamala Harris, there will be hell to pay. So Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, other members of the Democrat Party, and that their only option was Kamala Harris. As terrible an option as that was, she was the only viable option. So, but I also think that Nancy Pelosi and maybe even Barack Obama knew in the backs of their minds that Kamala Harris was not going to win. Those leaders behind the curtain in the Democrat Party also realize that there are stronger Democrat candidates out there for president. Those candidates include Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, Democrat governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and there are others. But Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and the Clintons, they all knew that those were stronger candidates. But in order for those candidates to really ascend, Kamala Harris had to lose. And it's just kind of crazy to me, by the way. You look at $47.2 million, $47.2 million left in the bank. When you run campaigns, folks, believe me, I run two of them. The first one, we finished with no money in the bank at all. None. Because you leave it all on the field. You raise money from people and you use that money to win. For my Senate race, I think we ended in $40,000 in the hole, which I had to figure out how we were going to pay that debt down. You leave it all on the field. So for the Democrats, I mean, they lost the Senate. They lost the House, still close margins in each. And they lost the White House. It's incomprehensible to me. It's campaign malpractice to have that much money left in the bank. And the only explanation is, I think, that they legitimately wanted Kamala Harris. She lost in a landslide to Donald Trump. She doesn't have a case to make in 2028 to be the Democrat frontrunner, even though she's saying she's going to do it now. Everyone is going to say, you got your ass whipped. What makes you think that you can win again? And that clears a path for Shapiro, Whitmer, Newsom, or other Democrats who they believe are better qualified to do it. So to me, this is just another proof point of that. Okay, shift to another story that I want to talk about today. You got lots of different things I want to talk about. The FBI nabbed a new January 6th political prisoner today. And we had Steve Friend on for the first time on the show this week. I did not intend to go down the path that we did during our discussion. First of all, I'm definitely going to have Steve back because I think he's a great guest. But I couldn't believe the inside look that he was able to give of the FBI and just how truly rotten and corrupt that organization is. Well, a 57-year-old grandma who just had eye surgery, who's practically blind, she's being driven by the FBI, or driven today by the FBI to court to be charged with committing misdemeanors almost 4 years ago on January 6th. It's hard to see how the FBI are the good guys in this equation. Or how about this from Julie Kelly? Judge Royce Lamberth, a Reagan appointee, is 80 years old. He cannot get out of his chair without help, uses a walker, and falls asleep during court proceedings. But he's spending his final days unleashing hell on January 6ers. This is going to shock you. In a 13-page unhinged polemic, Lamberth just sentenced a nonviolent misdemeanor to 12 months in prison. And instead of allowing the man to report to custody a few months from now, which is routine, he remanded him into immediate custody. Why? Because if Grillo, who is the person being charged, is set to report in February or March, which is, again, typical, it's likely he won't spend a day in prison if Trump issues a blanket pardon to January 6ers. So Julie Kelly says this evil judge sentenced him to a federal prison in a few weeks before Christmas to make sure he spent time behind bars. And Lamberth, who is the judge, and who's very public in claiming any challenge to the official January 6th narrative represents a revision of history, straight up lies about police fatalities. In his opinion about Grillo, the man that was charged, he wrote, that is a lie. Folks, I'm telling you, these judges in the DC circuit and some of these Democrat judges across the nation, I mean, the news moves fast in this country, and in many ways, we don't talk about the fact that many of these Democrat lawyers, these Soros-funded lawyers, along with these Democrat judges, tried to take Trump off the ballot. I mean, these judges, now technically they have immunity. I am not so sure that they should have immunity for this stuff. I think that there has to be some type of accountability, a board to review each of these judges and their decisions at least over the last, say, going back to 2019, maybe even further, say going back to 2016 when Trump first took into office. I think President Trump in this next administration, you know how they to evaluate generals that were opposed to President Trump's mission, or that may be weaving diversity, equity, and inclusion, making our military less lethal, evaluating generals, and if they don't meet criteria to stay, they should go, be forced to retire. I think the same is true for a lot of these judges. I think there needs to be accountability for these people. Otherwise, when Trump's out of office 4 years from now, it's just going to happen again. Folks, bank on that. For the last week, I have been very, very focused, in addition to defending Pete Hegseth, of course, on what happens after the next 4 years. Because you see many of the senators right now, right? You see many of the senators, the GOP senators, and obstruct President Trump's agenda. Not all of them. In fact, many of them have come out in support of Pete. I'm not talking about them. But there are some who are just doing everything they can to obstruct President Trump's cabinet nominees. And so what happens after President Trump leaves office? You see, if there's not accountability in the Pentagon, if there's not accountability in the FBI, if there's not accountability at the DNI, if there's not accountability at the CIA, or accountability for some of these rogue prosecutors and rogue judges, then it's just going to happen again. All of these structures, these corrupt structures that have allowed for lawfare to happen, are still in place. Communists at every single level. I'm telling you, folks, these structures, and they're in Democrat cities all across this country. Those structures, they need to be transformed, to use a Democrat word. I mean, another proof point on this is what's happening with Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny in New York is an American hero. He's on trial right now for manslaughter, but the truth is he was protecting passengers from a homeless criminal who had been arrested 27 times and released almost as many times back onto the street to continue to threaten innocent people. So Daniel Penny, a Marine, gets involved and stops him from threatening and attacking passengers on a subway. And he's the one that's tried for manslaughter and risks and is at risk of spending decades behind bars. Why? Because he dared be a good Samaritan? Battle Crew, McGroin Nation, my friends from the Nunn Report, there's a reason why things Harris administration have felt like they're upside down. And I mean morally, whether it's the trans issue or even these stories that we've been taught, just not during our lives, but probably going back thousands of years, like the Good Samaritan. We've talked a little bit on this show about that, about how the left goes after these stories of the Good Samaritan. The idea that if you see somebody that is suffering, that has less power than you, then it's incumbent upon all of us to reach out and lend a helping hand to help somebody who is struggling, that is ailing, that is hurting. That's the core message of the Good Samaritan. Of course, I'm oversimplifying, but that's what Daniel Penny was. He was the Good Samaritan. And here we have an example in a Democrat communist-controlled system in Manhattan where Daniel Penny might go to jail for decades because he dared be a good Samaritan. So you see how these communists and leftists turned virtuous, good stories upside down. And I think that's just one example of why things have felt like they're upside down in this country for the last 3.5 years. Now, the first manslaughter charge against Penny was dropped. Daniel Penny was dropped. But Daphne Uron, who, by the way, is the prosecutor who is going after Penny, I don't know, look up a picture of this woman. Sometimes you can just see evil on the physical appearance of somebody. She definitely looks the part. Let's just say that. This is from Greg Price. Daphne Uron moved to dismiss count 1, which was manslaughter, because count 2 couldn't be considered if there was no verdict on count 1. And this is like a big ethical violation, but you're seeing the lengths that the left will go to try to convict a good Samaritan. So they're bending the law to try to squeeze the jury for a guilty verdict here for someone who simply saved people on a train. You see how perverted this is. And this, of course, will have second and third order effects, Battle Crew. How many times have we seen, attacks, horrible things happening to somebody, and we wonder why the hell isn't anybody helping? There's nobody helping, but there's a hell of a lot of people standing up with their cell phones filming. Why don't one of those people help? Well, you see what's happening to Daniel Penny, right? I think this is I think this is going to, obviously, I don't think I know that this is going to make people less likely to help in scenarios like this. And so here's the good news. John Cornyn, senator from Texas, said yesterday that Kash Patel, FBI director under President Trump's administration. That, my fellow Americans, Battle Crew, McGroin Nation, nunchuckers, Dan, you got to let me know what the nickname of. I want to make sure I get it right. But that's good news, folks. That is good news. Okay. I gotta do some sponsor reads. I've been going on about this for 20 minutes. Forgive me. While I'm doing this, make sure you smash that like button, that little green thumb beneath the video. Help us make the leaderboard. Guess what, folks? We were number 33 today. I don't think that we've ever been that high. And also, look, I mean, we're on our way to 20,000 followers. That's amazing. I think last year, when this show was just a few months old, I think we maybe had 5,000. So you can see how fast the show is growing because of all of you. Okay, so let's talk about Sweetamine for a minute or so. Sweetamine is amazing for chronic pain. It works because it's composed mainly of the amino acid glycine. That's the nutrient our body uses to regulate inflammation. These days, they're all rooted in chronic inflammation, mainly due to a glycine deficiency. All those aches and pains that we feel as we get older, also due to chronic inflammation, also because of a glycine deficiency. You probably know this ad by heart now. Once daily serving of Sweetamine provides 8 grams of glycine. That's enough to stop all excess inflammation right where it starts. With once daily Sweetamine, most people feel the reduction in pain after just a few days. 12-day challenge, a 12-day challenge trial pack of Sweetamine is only $19.95 with free shipping, sold completely risk-free. So use Sweetamine just like sugar. It'll be in your favorite beverage, in a smoothie, sprinkled on your cereal. You take it any way you want. All natural Sweetamine contains no sugar, no carbs, only has 24 calories, perfectly safe for diabetics. You can get it online at sweetamine.com. That's SWEETAMINE.com, or call 855-GET-SWEET. That's 855-438-7933. Again, that's sweetamine.com, 855-GET-SWEET, or 855-438-7933. On your first order, if you use the promo code Sean, SEAN, you'll get a $5 discount on all this. Trust me, folks, this stuff works. The only thing that you really have to lose is your pain, because if you don't like it, you can send it back, full money back guarantee. Also, got to tell you about My Patriot Supply. We're all feeling pretty good about where our country's headed now, but I am concerned because it's when we let our guard down that bad things happen. That's why I always prepare for emergencies, no matter how good and comfortable life gets. The only brand that I rely on for my security and safety in an emergency is My Patriot Supply. Whether that be emergency food kits, solar power generators, or water treatment systems, they are the best in the business. And right now, you can get their 4-week emergency food kit for $50 off. Their 4-week emergency food kit includes some of my favorite meals, my favorite pasta, chicken Alfredo. I also love Alfredo pasta. They have also got addicting snacks like sweet banana chips. My Patriot Supply can send your 4-week emergency food kit in as little as 1 day. So just go to preparewithvnn.com. Get your 4-week emergency food kit now, but do not wait, because emergencies can happen anytime. I got my stash of My Patriot Supply right there on the shelf behind the camera. So just go to preparewithvnn.com. Get your 4-week emergency food kit right now. Okay. So listen, I got to talk about, I'm trying to experiment here. I'm trying to experiment here with when to read the Rumble Rants tips, because I get suggestions from those in the live chat. Sometimes you all think maybe it interrupts the flow to read them in between blocks. So I'm thinking that what I might do is save them all, like leave a little time at the end and go through and try to thank everybody. I truly do love you. I consider you all like members of the family. I like to thank every single person that gives a tip, a Rumble Rant tip. Let me know how you feel about this. Are you guys cool with me trying to, I want to see it in the chat. Are Are you cool with me trying to read these all at the end to help give the show a little bit better of a flow? Or do you like when I read them in the middle of the show? Let me know. It's your show. Let me know what you think, and I'll see if we can move out. Because I know I've got some Rumble rants coming in. I want you to know that I see them, and I'm gonna get to them. I'm gonna thank you all at the end and read some of your comments. Okay, so let's talk about Pete Hegseth, and it's really less about Pete Hegseth at this point. By the way, smash that like button, that little green thumb beneath the video. I think we're close almost to 300 likes already, and that's pretty damn amazing. I think, let me give you a quick situation report. I think that Pete's nomination for Secretary of Defense 3 or 4 days ago was in danger. I thought that the left-wing media was reaching a critical mass to try to get rid of him. And I think we turned that tide. I really do believe we turned a corner. President Trump released a statement today saying Pete's doing amazing. He's a winner. Okay. Trump's working with all these other people. No. Trump supports him, and that's a big deal. I think we turned the corner. J.D. Vance spoke out on Pete this morning as well. Listen.
Because I know that's what people are focused on. Look, importantly, Pete Hegseth is going to get his appearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee, not a sham hearing before the American media. Is the right guy to lead the Department of Defense. That's why President Trump nominated him. We're not abandoning this nomination. We're not going to make it easy for people to allow them. Who our Secretary of Defense is Donald J. Consent of the United States Senate. That's who determines who the Secretary of Defense is. I fully support Pete. I think Pete's going to get confirmed, and we are completely behind him. I have talked to Joni. I've talked to a number of my colleagues about this nomination and about other nominations. All I'm asking is that people actually allow the Senate process to work. We do not determine important government officials based on anonymous sourcing from the American media. We determine who our officials are through the nomination process, the advice and consent process of the United States Senate. That's how it should happen, and that's how the president's nominees are going to work through this process.
The advice and consent process is a power that is bestowed on senators in the Constitution. It's an important process. Of course, I support that. I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. I'll never go back on that. It's an important process that must be respected. Advice and consent. No part of that equation includes the word obstruct. And so the Senate, let me tell you about the Senate. It's a very strange body, government body. It is different from the House of Representatives in many, many ways. But let me try to use a sports analogy. The House of Representatives is like a football team or a hockey team where you've got great relationships with everybody there. You all work together. You're going out to the bar after. I mean, it's just there's a sense of real camaraderie in the House of Representatives. Not for every member, but most members, there's a sense of camaraderie there. The Senate is not the case. There are only 50 Republican senators. They're in a very, very, very exclusive club. Now, I know 53 now, but for the most part, there are and have been around 50. It's a very exclusive club. The Senate is like golf. Senators almost exist on an island in that they a little fiefdom that they command. There's not as much camaraderie in the Senate. Actually, this is accurate to say there's camaraderie in the Senate in the sense that, hey, we're all Republicans, but it's not like it's in the House. Each senator has their own fiefdom. And so within the United States Senate, and every single senator, listen, they're very, very savvy politicians. And there's a thing that I like. GOP senators speak. It's especially prevalent during times like this. I'll give you a couple good examples with what's going on with Pete Hegseth right now. Joni Ernst and Lindsey Graham have been on the receiving end of attacks from the America First base for 48 hours because they have been suspected in working behind the curtain on a whisper campaign to tank Pete Hegseth's operation. There were rumors that Joni Ernst wanted the Secretary of Defense spot for herself. So you can see why she might be opposed to Pete, right? And that Lindsey Graham was helping her. So all of this is happening behind the scenes. So Sean Davis of the Federalist wrote this piece exposing all of that. And now the America First movement has been going after Lindsey Graham and Joni Ernst. And so this is just me setting the scene, okay? So there's an article that came out from Real Clear Politics, and the title of the article is Joni Ernst, and I quote, "I don't have a campaign against Pete Hegseth." This is just from the article. "The candidates changed," she said, "but the process ought to remain consistent. If there had been allegations made against General Austin," she said to the current defense secretary, who is confirmed with broad bipartisan support 4 years ago, "we would have gone through that process as well. I think anyone that comes in front of our committee deserves a fair hearing." So just bear with me here. I'll explain what I think is happening. "I just want to make sure the process is able to play out and that we're thoroughly vetting him. I do believe that Pete deserves to have a hearing. All the rumblings out there are absolutely false. My role as a senator is to make sure that we're putting to bed any rumors, any anonymous, whatever," she continued. "We just need to make sure that he's thoroughly vetted and that he has his opportunity to go in front of the committee, recount his service, and rebut any allegations," she concluded. "I don't have a campaign against Pete Hegseth," she reiterated. Asked about Governor Ron DeSantis, whose name has been floated as a plan B, Ernst replied, "I do think he would be a good candidate for this position. But as I've told reporters, they asked me in the hallways, Hegseth is the nominee and the president will determine who that nominee is." Now, this is the very last paragraph. "There will be plenty of time," Ernst said, "to go back and sort through all the anonymous this and that and the other." Why are we spending even 1 second? She noted that thus far, all the allegations have been made anonymously in the press. Here we go. And I quote, I mean, if they have information, she said, they need to be willing to put their name to it. I'm going to read that again. If they have information, she said, they need to be willing to put their name to it. That is the most important line in that entire article. So she spends the entire article. I don't have an agenda against Pete. There's plenty of time. We're just going to let the process play out. Yeah, I love DeSantis, but Pete's the nominee. But hey, if there are people out there, wink, wink. So you see what's happening here, right? Do you see how some of the senators speak? How they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. You see that, right? It's absolutely happening. Okay, how about this? Listen to this. Lindsey Graham.
I've known Pete for a long time. I served with him in Afghanistan. The people over there said nothing but great things about him. The allegations against Pete are all anonymous sources. I am not going to make any decision based on an anonymous source. If you're not willing to raise your hand under oath and make the accusation, it doesn't count. I've heard everything about all these people. None of it counts. No rumors. I've seen this movie before.
Same thing. Unless you raise your hand under oath, it's the same thing. Yet, this is all being spun in the media as positive, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think this is them saying, and here's why I think that. The next phase of the operation against Pete is to find somebody who can be easily manipulated and very, very likely paid a substantial sum of money, or somebody who needs money. I'm telling you, this is the next phase. As to whether or not they can find somebody to do that, I don't know. But this is so right now, it's very easy for it's not very easy. This process is hell, but you can say these are anonymous allegations. I know Pete. But once you put a face to somebody, that's harder to ignore. And what the media wants is Pete versus whoever this person is. That's what they want. And I think a lot of these GOP senators who might have their own interests involved here in some way are looking for a reason to not support Pete. You could be cynical about that all you want. I mean, like listen. I don't trust anybody in this business. I don't trust anybody in this business. And on paper. And that's a fact. There are a lot of this business, folks, especially in the Senate, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. They say one thing, I don't take. You see what I'm saying? I don't trust politicians. I just don't. I don't trust them, and I will not trust either of them. Listen, I don't have an agenda against Joni Ernst and Lindsey Graham. Every experience that I've had with these two senators has been positive. But I'll tell you, it's curious that Joni would take this position right now, because I think she has a lot to lose politically. She's in a state that Trump won by over 13. And she's put herself at great political risk here. I think she might have a couple of days to turn things around, but it's very, very likely she's going to get a strong America First primary against her. I mean, that ship has almost sailed. I mean, if it hasn't already sailed, it's at the dock and ready to set off. It's hard to see how Joni, a lot of her record now is being made public, and it's hard to see how she's really any different than a lot of the Democrats in the Senate. I mean, listen to this.
So, serving in our military, they will bleed red just as the rest of us. But I also take a stance that we should not be certain situations where it does make, if you have a female barracks who has not transitioned, we shouldn't make the rest of the unit uncomfortable about that setting. There are certain accommodations. But if they bring value to our unit, if they have specialties that we can use, especially if we want to maintain an all-volunteer force, we want to bring that talent into our services. And I know that's controversial, but again, I'm looking at what's good for our nation. And believe me, when we're facing a recruiting challenge right now, if people are physically willing and able to serve our country, we want them to do so.
We're facing a recruiting crisis right now. I'm sorry, but I don't support that. I have sympathy for the trans community, but it's a mental illness, and there are all sorts of reasons why people are prohibited from joining the military. Asthma is one of those reasons. Being out of shape is one of those reasons. You don't get to join just because you want to join. We have standards, and they're adhered to for a reason. And I'm okay. So how is what Joni Ernst said any different really than what Tim Walz is saying right here? Listen.
I think we're going to have to understand what type of leadership do they want. We were pledging to be inclusive. We were pledging to bring people in. Donald Trump has said that that isn't what he wants. I guess for me, it's to understand and learn more about America, because I thought that they were going to probably.
So there you have it. I mean, no, bring inclusive. And we really, that word is a left-wing word synonymous with like conservatives want a society that is gelled together. We talk about uniting people. We're the big tent party. You understand? We're the true party of the melting pot in this country, where it doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you make, what God you worship. You know, you could celebrate amazing aspects of your background, but guess what? You're an American first, period, full stop. But for the left, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a divisive term. All of these words on the left mean the opposite of how they're intended, how they use them. So inclusivity really means divide. It's the opposite of what Martin Luther King wanted. Judge people not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's a Martin Luther King quote. But the left is all about celebrating people by their skin color, is all about dividing people. And what they've done in the military is shameful. This DEI stuff is pervasive. And look, you see how Joni Ernst feels about some of these agenda items in the military. I've told you that she might even be interested in Secretary of Defense herself. But these are things that Pete does not want in the military. And so it actually makes sense that she would oppose him just based on policy alone, right? She wants trans folks in the military. She supports that diversity, equity, and inclusion's insanity. And if you add to that maybe she wanted the Secretary of Defense role, it makes sense that she would want to do this despite what she's saying, right? You see, like, you truly listen to the things that they say. That's where you learn the most about these senators. But this DEI stuff is real, and it's in the military, and it needs to be rooted out. Listen.
Since January of this year, more than 400 anti-LGBTQ plus laws have been introduced at the state level. That number is rising and demonstrates a trend that could be dangerous for service members, their families, and the readiness of the force as a whole. When I look at potential candidates, say for squadron command, I strive to match the right person to the right job. I consider their job performance and relevant experience first. However, I also look at their personal circumstances, and their family is also an important factor. If a good match for a job does not feel safe being themselves and performing at their highest potential at a given location, or if their family could be denied critical health care due to the laws in that state, I am compelled to consider a different candidate and perhaps less qualified. Those barriers are a threat to our readiness, and they have a direct correlation to the resiliency and well-being of our most important operational advantage, our people.
I'm sorry. Or how about this? This is a dude, a dude talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. Listen.
The next category of questions received a lot of attention from our members, and that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'd love to start with that first question is, sir, there's a widespread desire to incorporate DE&I across the American landscape. What does the Department of the Air Force hope to achieve in incorporating DE&I policies?
Yeah, I think the short answer on that, we could go way deep on this, but the short answer is we want the best, most capable force that we can get. And we're trying to eliminate the barriers, open the doors, and making sure that, that we can do that. We can have the best, most capable force that our nation can provide. And I think all too often that we have had limitations, either policy limitations that provide barriers, or we have not done the work with the American public to highlight the opportunities that that come with military service, or specifically service in the United States Air Force. So we are getting after both of those. And ultimately, that's really what DEI is getting after. Not identifying the barriers that are currently exist, getting messaging out to the public as to what opportunities do exist, and then just drawing the talent that we need to continue to excel as a force.
And sir, given that you are director of staff, do you have any guidance or input for CGOs on how do we better understand when we've made considerable gains with respects to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
This is the answer probably to a number of questions, and I don't mean to shortchange it by giving you this almost of a platitude of an answer. When we can stop having meetings about it, or when we can stop having specific focused discussions on it, and it becomes part of our DNA, then we've achieved success.
Listen. Why in the hell is the Air Force spending even 5 seconds talking about that insanity? General Milley, who rose to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, spent 44 years in the military, or any other barriers in the military during that time of service. The guy was too damn weak to resist. Then it became all about white rage and the fake agenda from he just went right along with it because he's just a politician that wants to climb a ladder. And these people, you see how dangerous this is. Any focus on that. Here you have a general who's in command of a staff at the Air Force, spending time talking about DE&I, but not training his people, not trying to make the Air Force more lethal, because that's the point. Lethality. It's always been politicians and stupid generals that have ruined it for us since then. And now you see, this is why Pete is facing such resistance, because he's pledged to root it all out. But the resistance that he's facing, it's from inside the Beltway people. It's not from ordinary Americans. Ordinary Americans support Pete. Listen to this North Carolina Democrat.
Also in North Carolina, Concord Democrat. Good morning.
Good morning. Y'all have a great day. Yes, Pete Hegseth he's qualified. The man's done everything. He's God-fearing. And that's all you need to be qualified. And then you have...
Okay, so that was 17-second delay. That's crazy. So some of the sound on StreamYard is being a little bit finicky. So I think I'm just going to nix the sound. I have some cool stuff left to go. But yeah, to see Grandpa 5,000, 350s as I'm leaving. Likes before we pop smoke. Let me tell you about the wellness company here. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in. The wellness company, Dr. Peter McCullough is closely associated with it. The wellness company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. So this is the wellness company. This is the medical emergency kit. So whether it's the medical emergency kit like this, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment, here you go, check it out, of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist you in the proper use of these medications. So from anthrax to tick bites, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas, the wellness company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. So rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics and parasitics on hand to keep you and your family safe, folks, that just goes a long way. Battleground today. Use the promo code Battleground and you will save 10%. Also want to tell you about Birch Gold. I spend time on the show for the last year telling you about great gold companies that I believe that you can trust, and Birch Gold is one of them. Open a gold IRA with Birch Gold Group and you get free silver coins shipped directly to your home. That's right. The most wonderful time of the year, the time of the year when Birch Gold gives away a free silver American Eagle coin for every $5,000 purchase. And here's the best part. You don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. By December 20th, all you got to do, simply convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals, and Birch Gold will send your free silver coins directly to your home. Now, you might be thinking, Trump's going to be back in office. Everything's cool. But the fact is, we're $36 trillion in debt. That's a steep mountain to climb. We can't even afford to pay the interest on our debt, let alone the principal. So just better to be safe than sorry, right? Take action now to protect your savings. Text the word Sean, S-E-A-N, to 989898 for a free info kit on gold. Claim your eligibility for free silver on your purchase from Birch Gold, but you've got to do it before December 20th. Again, text Sean to the number 989898 for peace of mind that lasts longer than 3 years. And I'm getting texts here from Commander Melanie. And she tells me that Emma scored a 3-pointer, double overtime in the 8th grade game and lost by 1 point. Oh, well, that sucks, but congratulations to Emma. That's pretty damn awesome. I'm so proud of her. We love her. She's amazing. Congratulations on your 3-pointer. I couldn't make a 3-pointer. I'm absolutely terrible at basketball. Not my cup of tea. But okay. I think there's going to be some vindication from the come from a Chinese lab, and a whole lot more in that report. And I think it's going to bode well for people like us who have been suspicious of the plan. Listen to Joe Rogan talking about this on his show.
Likely originated from a lab-related incident in Wuhan, China. Crazy. You get banned from YouTube for saying that. Banned. With criminals exploiting weak oversight, prolonged lockdowns and arbitrary mandates cause severe harm, economic devastation, mental health crises, and historic learning loss, while lacking robust scientific support. Policies ignored natural immunity, pushing mandates that eroded trust and harmed public perception of science. Absolutely. WHO and CDC compromised by political interference, offering inconsistent, unscientific guidance that fueled public distrust, and the key players included federal agencies, and Cuomo's administration actively obstructed oversight efforts and hid critical evidence. Basically said all the conspiracy theorists were correct. Every
one of you were correct. You should feel a little vindicated by that. And I think with Trump coming back into office, you certainly will. Okay, I got to spend a couple minutes before we pop smoke for the weekend. Common Freaking Sense said, talking about sacrificing Kamala and her being a sacrificial lamb, said, we've been saying this on Livefire. Is that your podcast? If it is, you should definitely support Livefire. Go over, look it up on wherever it is, Common Freaking Sense. If you're still there in the live chat, let us know how we can support you. But we've been saying this on Livefire for months. To stem down ballot bleeding, keep kicking ass, battle crew. Well, we know you, we will, but thank you, Common Freaking Sense. And if you got an awesome podcast, I think that's really cool. Also the Nunn Report, my boy Dan Nunn. He says activists, judges, and prosecutors, disgusting. How do we fix that? Yeah, Dan, I think just what I said on the show, I think boards to evaluate these judges on a case-by-case basis and see if what they did had what could be very real ethical violations or even violations of the law or anti-democratic principles. Trying to boot somebody off the ballot seems like a threat to democracy to me. So hopefully That'd be pretty damn awesome. Thank you for the Rumble Rant tip. And Common Freaking Sense again. He says you one-upping SOB to the Nunn Report and tipped. Thank you, Common Freaking Sense. That's awesome. And of course, G. Fontes says Matt Gaetz, 2026, the next governor of the great state of Florida. Yeah, well, we will see how that plays out. The state of politics in Florida is certainly going to be very, very interesting over the next couple of years. Anyways, folks, listen. I think that it was one of the greatest human rights violations in the history of the world. And I think this is why senior staffers in the White House are talking about preemptive pardons for people like Fauci. And then how about other preemptive pardons like this from MXM headline considers pardoning General Mark Milley for making secret phone calls to China. I mean, to me, you're bypassing the commander-in-chief. You're calling the Chinese without his approval. I mean, there's a word for that, right? What is it? Oh, yeah, that's right. Treason. And his team be talking about pardoning, giving blanket pardoning for these pardons for these folks when they haven't even really been charged with a crime yet. Seems kind of unprecedented, right? Seems kind of like that might be a threat to democracy, right? And this is what I say all the time. The new Democrat Party, they actually are a very real threat to democracy. And that's why I think folks like Eric Adams, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is already awake and she's defected. She's come over to the good side. Eric Adams seems to be making that journey as well. Talked about Eric Adams' work. He said very publicly, the mayor of New York City said he was going to work with Tom Homan to deport illegal aliens. Eric Adams spoke out in support of Daniel Penny. I mean, I think maybe part of the reasons why he's doing that is hopeful for a Trump pardon. But if we can start cracking into the Democrat Party and bringing over more traditional Democrats to the party that loves America, obviously be suspicious of all of them. Trust is earned. But I think we ought to be doing everything we can to bring on disaffected Democrats onto our movement. Do everything we can to fracture their base. Do everything we can to make it harder. Because as we're seeing time and time again, the Democrats are the real threat to democracy. All right, folks. I want you all to have a great weekend. I'm so grateful for you. I mean, this show has been growing like gangbusters. That is because of you. Before you leave, smash that like button before we get out of here. That little green thumb beneath the video. We're like 20 some likes away from 400. Let's see if we can get to 400. I'm excited for the weekend, folks. I'm optimistic about the future. I know here at Fort Parnell, we're going to be decorating for Christmas, right? We're going to be spending lots of time together as a family. But during the holidays, I mean, you really should be thinking like this. Who the hell am I to say how anybody should be thinking? But I think we should spend time and be grateful for the things. Just spend a little time every day grateful for what we have in our lives. You know, sometimes, and I know I felt like this over the last couple years. I'm telling you, it's this. I feel like this too sometimes. That things are rough. And yeah, life throws curveballs at you sometimes, but it's especially during those moments that I think we need to sit down and reflect on just how grateful we are for the things that God has given us. And so I know I'm going to be spending a little bit of time talking about just that. So thank you all. Seriously. Oh, yeah, Doc, you're right. He's talking about don't forget what tomorrow means to our country. Never forget Pearl Harbor. Thank you for the reminder, Doc. Don't forget Pearl Harbor. Say a prayer for a day which will live in infamy for sure. Pearl Harbor Day tomorrow. Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. But I want you all to have a great weekend, okay? Boston guy says decorating for Christmas. I'd rather have explosive diarrhea. Okay, Boston. I happen to love decorating for Christmas. I happen to love getting the house all in a festive mood for the holidays. But folks, I want you to have a great weekend, Battle Crew. Thank you to the Battle Crew. Thank you to McGroin Nation. Thank you to Nunchucks of the Nun Report. We appreciate having you as well. Everybody that gave a tip today, thank you. God bless. God bless you all, and God bless this amazing country that we call home. And don't worry, I know you all love Brian Dean Wright. He's coming back next week. I've got a full week of kick-ass shows for you next week. So I love you. See you on Monday. Have a great, great weekend.